announcements. So we're going to start with my announcements, my own announcements. I am Alberta Hemsley, and I bring you this group along with Katie Hoffman and some other of our staunch reporters, like Peter. Raise your hand, Peter. Peter will take your card and we'll put you on a mailing list if you want to be on our mailing list. Go get a card from. Whoa! Wow, we're over 350. That's really nice. He'll give you a card. Peter will give you a card. Peter will give you a card. Card. Peter, give her a card. There we go. Okay, we have other announcements to go. Okay, here we go. Wait.
Hello.
Stand up.
Hi, I'm Christy Woodworth, and I'm here with Ohioans for Economic Opportunity and the Shabbat Habit. Shabbat Habit. Well, we are working in District 1 to make voters. We're working to make voters and citizens of Ohio District 1 aware of Steve Shabbat's bad habits and his sabotage. Particularly as it relates to the healthcare system and the tax bill. So that's what we're working on. You may have seen our ads, which are running pretty heavily on TV, on CBS News, yeah. So there are a couple of really good ads, I think. We have a couple of events coming up. I put up there little half sheets like this for you that you may be interested in. Both of them are next Tuesday. The first one is called the Be a Hero Community Conversation with Addie Barkett. Now, Addie Barkett is going to be your speaker here next Tuesday as well. So are you familiar with him? He is a healthcare hero. He is the person who went viral. He's a young man with ALS who confronted, who did he confront?
Shabbat?
No, it wasn't Steve Shabbat. Darn it, now I'm...
Winston?
No, somebody national. Now look, I'm forgetting his origin story. But about the health care bill. And he's now on a nationwide bus tour speaking out about the healthcare system and the sabotage of it. So he'll be here to speak to you at noon. If you're interested in a broader community conversation, we're going to be holding with him, as well as local leaders, press, community health, and other social service leaders at 10 o'clock next Tuesday at Gabriel's Place over on Reading Road. Details here. And then that evening, not with Addie, but just with ourselves and with the public service artists. You guys familiar with the public service artists at all? They are a local group of artists that are working on progressive political action. Really interesting people. We're having a Cups and Coasters event at Westside Brewery where we will be handing out our Shabbat cups, which we gave out at the Northside Parade and other places. You may have seen them. And they are handing out coasters that say Steve Shabbat is a coaster. So it's Cups and Coasters, 5:30 to 8:30 at Westside Brewing. Details of it are up on a sheet up there. Hope you can join us for some of it. Yep, that's yours.
Okay, that takes up all the time we have for announcements.
Sorry.
So, Move to Amend in coalition with American Promise, both to get big money out of government, are having a meeting on Sunday. I didn't have enough flyers to put it, so you get copies on every table. So if you don't get one, we have more. I'll put them on the bar back there, and you can hold up your hands. But part of what we'll be discussing is why this strategy is so important to every political campaign. And we would like to see it have a major impact, because I think everybody in this room knows we're not going to accomplish most of our goals as long as big money controls the process. It will be Sunday between 2 and 4 at First Unitarian Church, 536 Linton Street. It's on the flyer. Hope to see you.
Here we go with Mike.
I have two announcements about death penalty. We're going to murder another prisoner tomorrow morning, his name is from Cincinnati. And there we are. And our names. And every night before a execution, we have a prayer vigil at Mount Auburn Presbyterian Church, where Pat is the pastor. You're the pastor at Mount Auburn Presbyterian Church. At 7 o'clock, so if you'd like to join with other people who think about the execution tomorrow. And we have a man named Tibbetts from Cincinnati who was brutalizes a child, and one of the jurors changed his vote when he heard about what a brutal childhood he had. Harvard Medical School did a study of some of the guys on death row, and he's one of them who's been brain damaged and whatever. So we'd like you to call the governor's office, if you would, and ask him not to execute Tibbetts. I have his phone number. The phone number for the governor is 614-466-3555. 614-466-3555 about Tibbetts. There's about 25 of the guys on death row who are in the same boat, who were severely beaten as children and had mental illness and whatever. And we're still going to execute them.
I hate hearing his stories every week about the latest ones that are being put to death. I really, I don't know what to do with those stories.
And that's what we're going to do to all these children that are taken at the border, is traumatize them, and as adults, they're not going to be able to function if we don't do something.
Right.
Glad to hear about that. I'm glad to hear about it.
Good morning.
Chris.
Springfield Township, where I live, was gerrymandered into District 2 in 2011. So I'm doing some volunteering for the Jill Schiller campaign. She's running against Wenstrup. She needs volunteer help to create attention to the fact that she's even running. So if you go to her website, Jill Schiller for Congress, or if you go to Facebook and just put in, search Jill Schiller at the top, it will take you to her volunteer group. And she's looking for volunteers to march in the Claremont County Fair Parade on Sunday, the 22nd of July.
There's a dish in it.
And to man the Democrats' booth at the Claremont County Fair. And also the following Saturday on July 28th, looking for people to canvass neighborhoods. So there's a lot of work that can be done for Jill. And if you do decide to go to the parade, you get into the fair for free.
There you go.
As you can see, our speaker has arrived.
No, how much Kathleen Clyde's campaign from there?
Still have an announcement, and the food hasn't happened yet.
No,
So
no food yet.
Thank you.
I'm not sure where the food's coming. We've never had it come this late, so it's been.
Airtarians.
You didn't get your name tag? Thank you very much. I made a name tag special for her.
Back here.
No, you can't. She goes to
Alberta, let the message.
You can do whatever you want. Her name is Kathleen. Pete. Oh, Marlena. Hi.
Just really quickly, because I will be out of town next week, and there is a board meeting scheduled for Monday night, the 23rd at 6:30. If anyone here would like to attend in my place and report back to me, I would really, really appreciate that. And I will have this, I'm writing it down for Peter to put in the newsletter. Yeah, please go. If not for me, for yourselves, for your own edification, to let them know we're watching them. Thank you.
Good for you. Good for you.
You're up there. She was next.
Move it.
New member.
Yeah. Yes, brand spanking new. Go online for a little while. I am part of a new fledgling group called Burnett Woods, which is very concerned about the new efforts by our mayor and park board to get private money into our public parks through the development of the Clifton Cultural Arts Center into Burnett Woods. We are trying to recruit not really recruit, but just inform awareness that this is going on so people can be informed. We found a lot of people are not about the development, and then make their own decisions based on that information. So right now we're just trying to get the word out that they're trying to put in a 30,000 square foot building into Burnett Woods for a nonprofit, that nobody really had a vote on which nonprofit or how that property would be used. So, thank you.
Plus 40 parking spaces. Nobody's against Clifton Cultural Arts Center. They just think there's better places than to take more parkland away.
Thank you. Pete McLinden from the Cincinnati AFL-CIO. Couple announcements. First, our Labor 2018 campaign kicked off last month. It's a member-member campaign. We're educating union members now about not only the issues that are important to working families, but also the candidates we know are going to lead us in Columbus and in Cincinnati. I'm proud to introduce our new Southwest Ohio political coordinator, Julian Johnson. He has good pedigree. He had working experience with Work in America, and his brother is a national AFT representative. So we're glad to have him on board. And also Mike Braley from the Air Traffic Controllers has been released full time. So working together, our next day of action is Saturday, July 28th. We're encouraging more unions to release staff so we can build our campaign not only in Southwest Ohio, but throughout Ohio entirely. The second thing I want to announce is, many of you know the SORTA issue regarding the sales tax. It's been bounced around for the last 4 or 5 years. We have a meeting scheduled for tonight for the SORTA board. I am on the SORTA board, and now I've heard the vote has been kicked to next week. Apparently some board members are concerned because the Republicans are trying to put the sales tax initiative pushed by Denise and Todd because of the cuts by Governor Kasich to the public government fund. They're going to put that on the ballot, and I think there are some concerns. But if you have any concerns about the busing issue, the transportation, how we pay for it, please talk to me. I'd love to hear your views because we have to make a decision by next week if we're going to put it on the ballot this year. So thank you very much.
Get the information out to our unions, folks. We have union people here. Thank you.
With Kasich's cuts, it's easy to get sort of bored.
I got it.
I just want to mention Sunday afternoon, the United We Stand group, which grew out of women's marches, met for a big cookout at Sharon Woods. We had at least 60 people.
Nice.
And we talked a whole lot about democratic affairs. We're not happy, many of us, with the Democratic Party right now. We want them, I would say I think most of us would, in that group would agree, we talked about it a lot, that we should come out for Medicare for all. This would be what we need to do to reach the people that don't vote but do need health care and can be approached that way. I mean, that's one reason we should be for Medicare for all. And not everybody maybe agrees with us on that. But if you do, then reach the Democratic Party. Tell them to wake up to what the rest of the country is wanting. It's clear now, people want that. We're the only major country that doesn't have it. Why can't we have it?
Thank you. Thank you, Martha. And other announcements?
That's it.
Oh, I've got one of mine. You weren't going to get me without my tickets to sell. On September 13th, Thursday at 6 o'clock, we are going to have the September North Central Democratic Club spaghetti dinner. I have to tell you that my brother Stanley makes one of the spaghetti sauces, and it is really, really fine. I'm bringing that big chocolate cake from Costco, and if you want any of that, please come.
How much?
$20 ticket. So see me at the end. I've got lots of them. Just leave me with 3 because I need them from me and my 2 brothers. The date is Thursday, September 13th. And it is, oh, this is really interesting. The Glendale Lyceum, it's across the street from the grand finale. It's gonna be a good place this year. The Glendale Lyceum, $20 for adults. Think about that. We're in this part of the state. Okay. If you want to have any naturalization things, see me later. There are 2 naturalization things coming up, not this week, but next week. And they have not been taken up.
What time?
There's one at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, the last Friday in the month, and another one at 2 o'clock at Friday in the afternoon. So there are 2 ceremonies, and I'm happy to have you do that. I'll get that information to you. Yes? Oh, you didn't say hello. My goodness. Jump right in.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Enoch. I am a candidate for U.S. Congress, and not in Hamilton County, but in Butler County, so I wasn't going to introduce myself. But as it happens, one of the residents of Butler County is sitting right across the way from me, so I'm happy to introduce myself and to say that most of my fight for justice has been right here in Hamilton County. So I have labored here, but I live in Butler County, and now I am running to represent the district, the 8th district, to the U.S. Congress. So thank you for allowing me to
Any other announcements?
Okay, one more.
One more. We don't seem to have lunch yet, so
This is Pat Bruns here. I'm running for re-election for the state school board. Really? My teacher
kiss
voice
it,
is
kiss
not
it, really
working.
close. Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
Pat Bruns. I represent District 4, Hamilton and Warren County,
Mhm.
and I'm running for re-election to the state school board. And y'all come back on the 31st, I think, because I'm going to be chatting about education in Columbus.
And we are going to hear from you. Thank you. I do want to mention that the next time we have a Tuesday off is Christmas, December 25th, and January 1st. We have all those other days. I do want to mention that on Tuesday, I believe it's the 14th. No, where's Chris? Chris, I want you to wave your arm.
August 14th.
August 14th. August 14th, my grandson, who is 9, no, he's going to be 10 years old. He's going to play one of Chris's songs for us. And I'm kind of excited about it. Just at the end of the meeting. Whoever there is, we don't know who's going to be here on August 12th yet, but whoever's here, they're going to get my grandson singing at the end. So I'm really pleased about that. He's really good. He's really good. So I'm excited about that, and without further ado...
In case the flow of the people hasn't shown it to you, the food has arrived.
Woo-hoo!
So go get some.
Glad to do that. We're going to have to be real quiet while we do that. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Kathleen Clyde. Sorry about that. No, they'll be really quiet. They're really good about that. Okay, Kathleen Clyde is originally from Garrettsville, Ohio. She went to Ohio State. Let's see. She's worked in the Secretary of State's office in the Ohio Senate. She's a former president of the Public Interest Law Foundation. When incumbent Democrat Kathleen Chandler faced term limits in 2010, Clyde was one of 3 Democratic challengers who sought to replace Chandler, along with Sean Buchanan and Rick Huxley. She won. Yay, that's really nice. She was sworn into her first term in 2011 and is serving on the committees of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Finance and Appropriation, and the Higher Education Subcommittee, and State Government and Elections with its subcommittee. That sounds like a lot of work. In 2012, Clyde won re-election with 26.77 of the vote over Republican Dick Skiriatis. She represents the 75th District which used to be the 60, you know how they keep changing months? Yeah. Anyway, without further ado, Kathleen Clyde. Thank you very much.
Real close. Okay, I got this. Thank you so much for having me today for that introduction. And it's just always good to be down in Cincinnati. I'm glad to be here for the whole day with a day full of events. So thank you again. I am State Representative Kathleen Clyde, and I represent the now 75th Ohio House District, which is in Portage County. Portage is home to Kent, which is where I live now, and it's also home to Garrettsville, the tiny town that I grew up in. I don't know if anyone in here has heard of Garrettsville. Yeah, all right. Well, I usually like to describe it as a small town with one stoplight and a lot of heart. And I've been telling a story about when I grew up there on the campaign trail, the story of my first election. And it was the 1984 mock presidential election in my kindergarten class. And I was very excited to get the chance to vote, just like my parents. I was in the PM section of kindergarten, public school, Mrs. Bowen, I still remember her well. And I was excited to vote in that first election. But when I think back to it, I know I didn't have to worry about which ID I put in my book bag that morning in order to cast my vote in that election. I didn't have to worry that my name might have been purged from the list. I didn't have to wait in a long line. I'm pretty sure I wasn't worried about Russian hacking. It's hard to even joke about that right now, isn't it? But I got to use my voice and my vote was counted. And it's a good thing, because it was the only one in the whole class for Mondale Ferraro. So it was thank you. It was a powerful experience. One girl, one vote. It really shouldn't be more complicated than that. But unfortunately, if you fast forward to where we are right now in 2018, we are experiencing a number of problems with our elections in Ohio. And those are really because of attacks by our legislators in Columbus and our statewide officials on the right to vote for certain groups of Ohioans. And those are the groups that tend to vote Democratic. We have got to put a stop to this, and I want to tell you, just give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. First, the voter purging that's gone on in Ohio. It's a breaking news story as well because of a recent Supreme Court decision. But for those of you that don't know, Ohio has purged more voters from the voter rolls than any other state in the entire country. Over 2 million Ohioans have been purged under this current administration simply for not voting in a few elections. So we're not talking about people who passed away or people who've moved out of state. That process should continue. We're talking about this huge group of voters who are purged just because they missed a few elections. Unfortunately, the United States Supreme Court upheld this discriminatory process, but the good news from that decision is they say that this process is permissible, but it is not required. So I certainly, when I am Secretary of State, will stop that process of purging eligible voters on day one. Thank you. We also have a problem with long lines still in Ohio, and where we're really seeing them is at our early vote centers in some of our counties, really our urban counties like Hamilton. We have a rule that is written into Ohio code that we may only have one early voting location per county. So for a county with 15,000 people, that may be fine. We have a lot of small counties around Ohio, but for counties with over 1 million people, only having one early vote center has meant long lines, especially as we get close to Election Day at our early vote centers. So again, these little strategic decisions that get made have a real disparate impact on different voters around Ohio. It's for these reasons and really a whole lot more that are why I announced my candidacy for Ohio Secretary of State. And I am going to need you to join me in this fight because it truly is a fight to revive our democracy. So let me tell you about what the Secretary of State does. First, she is the chief elections official in the most important battleground state in the country. And there is so much that we can do on day one to make voting easier in our state and to make sure our voting system is secure from cyber threats. Second, the Secretary of State's office is the first stop for any new business that's filing in the state. So I want to make sure that we are as helpful and inclusive as possible to anyone who wants to do business here. I want to cut red tape for our Ohio voters and our businesses as well. And third, and especially important in this upcoming 2018 election, the Secretary of State is one of 3 statewide office holders that will sit on the State Redistricting Commission that will redraw our legislative districts after the next census. So I can tell this room already knows how important that is. But Ohio has suffered under some of the most gerrymandered districts in the entire country. Republicans have controlled this process for the last 30 years. They have put their self-interest first, and it shows. Ohio's a swing state. We swing back and forth. We're about 50% Republican, 50% Democrat, kind of depending on the election year. But our legislature in Columbus has Republican supermajorities in both chambers, and that is because of how these districts are drawn. It is these rigged partisan districts that are why we had union-busting Senate Bill 5 come out of our legislature. It's these hyper-partisan districts that brought 20 new restrictions on women's reproductive health care just since I took office in 2011. It's these districts that are why Ohio rolled back its renewable energy standards when other states are moving forward and creating those jobs that go along with a clean energy policy. And it's these rigged districts that are why we have given billions of dollars to failing for-profit charter schools in our state. But if we are able to take back that pen, and we are able to draw fair districts in our state, we can start to pass laws that are pro-worker, laws that are pro-jobs, pro-women, pro-environment, pro-public school. You name it, it will be back on the table, but not with this current dysfunction. So if you give me a Democratic Secretary of State, vote for Rich Cordray, our great gubernatorial candidate, and a Democratic State Auditor, Zach Space, is our great candidate, we will take that redistricting pen, bring fair districts to Ohio, and undo this injustice in our state once and for all. So, as I say, I come from the legislature, and it's a pretty uphill battle. We've had 38 bills introduced since I've been in the legislature to restrict voting in some way. 14 of those bills have been signed into law, and our Republican Secretary of State has really piled on by purging voters and eliminating early voting opportunities. So we have a lot on the line in this race. I want to tell you, though, that despite all of that, we have had some important wins. And I want to tell you about just a couple of them. Use these as energy for when we're thinking about the fight ahead. First, we were able to stop the most restrictive photo ID law in the country from becoming law in our state. partly by exposing a scandal by the chief sponsor of that legislation, Cincinnati's own former representative Bob Mecklenburg. He introduced that bill, and then with his traffic stop, where he had a stripper in the car with him and he was intoxicated on his way from the strip club, his own driver's license was expired and he wouldn't have been able to vote under his own legislation. So we, working together, exposed that. We fought back and we stopped that photo ID bill from becoming law here in our states. We have also fought all the way to the United States Supreme Court, not once but twice, to keep the last 3 days of early voting in place. Those also happen to be the 3 busiest days of early voting. And I'll tell a story from this last presidential election that I think is important, especially as we look ahead to 2018. I had a 17-year-old contact my office because he had been turned away from voting in the presidential primary, even though he would be 18 by election day. And I said, that's not right. Ohio law is clear on this. As long as you'll be 18 by the day in November of the general election, you can vote in that presidential primary. So sure enough, I talked to some local election officials, and they let me know that our Secretary of State had issued an order banning those young people from participating in the presidential primary. So right away, I came out and issued a public statement calling on our Secretary of State to reverse this illegal order. He refused, and he and I started battling. But in the meantime, 17-year-olds in this state came out of the woodwork. They were texting, they were calling, they were tweeting, they were Snapchatting. They even held a protest in downtown Columbus outside of the Secretary of State's office building, but still he refused to budge. So a good friend of mine, a very smart lawyer, and I grabbed a group of 9 of those 17-year-olds. We filed a lawsuit in state court in just a couple of days before that presidential primary election day. We won, and over 12,000 17-year-olds across Ohio were able to participate in the presidential primary. That's what democracy should look like. And I think about these wins we've had. Think about the wins we could have if we took back this office. So that is why I am building a robust campaign now. We are thrilled to be the only Secretary of State race in the country that is on the target list of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. Thank you. That was founded by Eric Holder, and it's being backed by President Obama to push back against this partisan gerrymandering that is happening in a number of states. We are leading in our fundraising efforts, which this will probably be the most expensive Secretary of State race in the country, so we certainly need to keep that momentum going, but we are currently ahead of our opponent in the fundraising race. We also were the top vote getter of the down ballot candidates in the May primary, so I think that shows we got to have women on the ballot as well. And finally, we have a couple recent polls showing us, one showed us 3 points up, and one showed us in a virtual tie. So certainly a very competitive race, and one that we can't do it alone. We would love to have your help. So let me give you a couple ways you can help me. And this really goes for all of the statewide candidates. We are in this together. We are running a coordinated campaign, and we need your help. This is an election year that is as important as I can remember, not just because of what is happening today and what we need to fix, but it is a 10-year span that those maps are in place, and it will take us a little while to get there. It won't be until after the census in 2020, but this election sets up who is in the commission that will redraw the district. So it really is a 14-year impact in this one election. So we'd love if you would check out our website. We're at KathleenClyde.com. You can sign up there to join our team. If you're feeling frisky, you can get your wallet out and consider making a contribution. As I said, this is a continued effort to raise the funds that we need, and we'd love to have your support, large or small. You can also set up a recurring contribution. And also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Whatever you prefer, your social media favorite, we'd love if you'd give us a follow, and then also share with your networks about what's happening on the campaign, the information that we're sharing. We can't get our message out alone. And this goes for every race on the ticket. Don't underestimate your own individual power to really make a difference in this election. Make sure that your family, your neighbors, your colleagues at work are registered to vote. Don't take it for granted. Even if they say they are, ask them to check. Also, make sure that those people know where to go vote. Help them find their polling place, or let them know about early voting, that they can vote from their kitchen table using a mail-in absentee ballot, or they can vote early at the Board of Elections. I would just encourage them to do that earlier in the early voting period as possible. I really do believe that together we can end the gerrymandering in our state. And just like I learned back in my kindergarten class in little Garrettsville, Ohio, we can have fair and easy elections in our state. That's what I'll bring to this office. That's what I'll bring to Ohio as your next Secretary of State. Thank you so much, everyone. You guys were very quiet getting your food, so I wasn't sure about that, but it worked out pretty well.
Hi, I have a short story and then a question. I was a teacher and I was at a Columbus event, and you won't mention his name, but I will, John Houston. And I asked him, this was back after the 2004 election, and the Inquirer had come out with an article saying that I don't know how many thousands of people presidential votes were gotten rid of because they went to the proper voting location, but they didn't vote in the proper precinct. And so I asked him about that, and he just made me stand there for about 10 minutes while he filibustered and didn't answer the question. And I talked to him afterwards, and I said, you know, where I voted, they had somebody there to tell you which place to go if you're in a multiple place. He goes, well, that's the responsibility of the voter. And I said, I teach government, and I don't know what precinct I'm in. Now, we happen to have somebody who told us, but how much you want to bet? There were a lot of them, and guess what part of town they were in that they didn't have people telling people where to go. And his response was, well, that's your responsibility. And I said, well, that's not a good enough answer. Why aren't they helping people? And he goes, they're just a bunch of old ladies. That was his response. Okay, so that tells you how much he cares about somebody's vote counting. All right, and then my question is, you know, this is a national issue now. And I just heard that there are several states that don't require paper backup. I think that's absolutely absurd, and there should be a national, I know, I teach government, I know voting is a you know, reserved power, but after all this hacking, and they did hack, okay, and why don't we require states to have paper backup?
Amen.
Amen.
First of all, that is shameful, the answer that you got from our Secretary of State about the importance of counting everyone's ballot and helping our voters make sure that they have access to our elections. Second, thank you for being a teacher in our state. And I know there's some other teachers in this room, and I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for our great public school teachers throughout Ohio. So thank you for your service. And finally, I'll say, yes, I think that it would be nice if the federal government would step up and have a paper backup or a paper ballot system in place. So far, they have not done that, and this has been a pretty, big concern. They did do a somewhat significant allocation of resources for voting equipment upgrade and security in the states, and Ohio was part of that funding allocation. Ohio does require a paper backup, which if you vote in a paper ballot county, the ballot is the paper. If you vote in electronic voting county, it is the little receipt tape that hopefully you would see running along with your electronic voting. In other states, they don't require that. It's true. It's not the majority of states, but I'd be really concerned if I were in one of those states. I think we could do better in Ohio. I think that security experts from both Republican administrations and Democratic administrations do worry about hacking in the future. They have ample evidence of hacking in the past. And what is being recommended is for the voting process to go back to paper ballots. That's what I am advocating. I've introduced legislation that would do that, and I hope to be in the Secretary of State's office and be able to make that a policy so you all can be sure that our elections in Ohio are as secure as they possibly can be. So thanks for that great question.
Hello. Just a couple quick things. First is I'm a canvas captain, so I'm trying to do double and triple duty in different parts of town, mostly the west side. Let me know. We will happily drop your lid. Second thing is, out of curiosity, have you heard about this whole to-do with Jeff Pastor, city council member down here, and was wondering how you felt about it or what your thoughts were?
I don't know about that situation. Can you tell me how it relates to elections?
I think somebody else could probably
just ask the question in a generic way, and I can definitely.
Okay, so what it boils down to for me is it sounds like his seat on city council was paid for. It was bought, and there were some campaign finance reports that weren't filed correctly, and now the question, why it relates to Secretary of State is because I keep seeing this whole debate over whether they need to file, or it's our Hamilton County Board of Elections that needs to file suit, or OEC.
Kathleen, what we saw was the introduction of dark money at a local level, which we have not seen. We've seen at the state level, we've seen at the federal level, but all of a sudden dark money is now coming into local elections. And I think the concern my sister has is, what are we going to do to stop that infiltration?
Dark money in our election system is a huge problem, and on the local level, local officials do their reporting at the county level, and the Secretary of State manages the state legislative offices, the state offices, and then the statewide PACs and ballot issue campaigns. As far as at the Secretary of State level, I would like to, number one, make the website much more user-friendly and much more transparent about the money that's being spent in our political system in the state. I also want to do everything I can to ban the dark or secret money and foreign money from being spent in our elections. The way we have a loophole in our current law that allows a ballot committee or a campaign committee to accept a contribution from a political contributing entity, as they're called, and that entity can take money from an LLC that doesn't have to disclose its donors. So some of these recent ballot issues have had one donor. It's one LLC that has spent $10 million. So we need to get the best disclosure that we possibly can and require any political spending that is being done in our state to be disclosed. In light of the Citizens United decision, which I believe needs to be overturned, in the meantime, what we have as our best sort of weapon in this situation is sunlight, disclosure, knowledge of what's happening, of who's spending what. And I'll fight to make sure that we have as much of that as possible at our state level and our Secretary of State's office. And I would hope that that would be a policy that should happen on the local level as well. We can work together with local boards of elections to help them put policies in place to make that transparency that Ohioans deserve.
I have a question about John Huston's issue with the 17-year-olds voting. It bothers me that it doesn't seem like there's any accountability on his part for doing a clearly illegal order. Is there any way to hold him responsible, to have any punishment for him? Otherwise, people like that can try it and get away with it. The worst that happens is they end up having to do what they should have done in the first place, but no punishment at all for Houston. It should be criminal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a real struggle, all of these different lawsuits that have had to be filed to make our Secretary of State do his job, whether it be the 17-year-old lawsuit, whether it be the Obama v. Houston case, where that was the case that governed the last 3 days of early voting. We've had litigation over counting people's provisional ballots. It's hugely distressing. I do not think that there are necessarily criminal violations going on, although it's certainly an interesting thought. It also has to do too with who our prosecutors are. I don't think our Attorney General, who defends the Secretary of State in all of these cases and keeps appealing and spending your taxpayer dollars on these anti-voting crusades, that's our top law enforcement official in the state. So there's a lot of kind of barriers to that, but it's an interesting, certainly an interesting concept to think about. And in the meantime, I'll keep doing battle in every way I can, and hopefully we can take back that office.
Could he be held in contempt of court?
It depends on which decision we're talking about, and he has had some problems with that. I can't recall the particular case, but that kind of got him to move real quick on something he was dragging his feet on. And, again, I think the best option for all of us is really to take this office back. And that's what we should focus on, and I think we can do it. I really do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Galloway. Husband and Dick Posian and a couple of other people here actually formed a group called Greater Cincinnati Move to Amend, part of the national Move to Amend effort to not only reverse Citizens United, but actually go back in history and resolve some of those issues that led to Citizens United, such as only people are people, and money's not free speech. But I was wondering if you were aware there is a companion resolution in the state of Ohio, I think it's HR 74, which is very similar, and basically it says it's kind of tabled right now. They had a hearing in February, so we're following it, but it's really powerful, and I would just recommend that to your attention.
Yeah, I may be a co-sponsor of that resolution, but I'm sure it's stuck in the kind of black hole where a lot of Democratic legislation lies, including mine. But yes, I applaud you guys for that effort, and I am, hopeful one day Congress may act on this, and that we can see real effort to stop the flow of corporate money, stop the flow of secret money in our elections in this country, in the state, everywhere.
And we've got about 500,000 signatures on our petition so far, and growing. So
great job.
Hi, my name is Lori Knuckles. This is actually my neighborhood. I live in Pillsbury. I have a question about voting and encouraging registration and voting. And for all the litigation, public policy discussion that's going on in an academic context, are we really going to reach out to people and have them feel comfortable in learning what's on the ballot and actually expressing their opinion? And is there a gap between the grassroots people in their homes who might be economically comfortable, but who don't really feel that they have the right to participate? And I was just wondering if sort of local issues from the Secretary of State's office beyond managing the ballot, like small business development, and especially in some of the neighborhoods that might have residential security, they really have viable commercial districts because of the growth of franchises and the malls and the internet. They really don't have to have them. So is there any way to cultivate through research across state lines and internationally to give them some sense of economics within their neighborhoods?
Thank you for that question. A couple things I'll say. I do think that all of these different attempts to make voting harder, obviously confuse voters, and I think create just a negative impression of every Ohioan's fundamental right. And is my vote going to be counted? Am I going to be allowed to vote? Do I have what I need to vote? It is not encouraging. And we've seen our voter turnout in Ohio decline since the high mark in 2008. We are back down to the year 2000 level. So, we need to make the environment in Ohio more empowering for voters to express their choices and use their voice. As far as the business side of the Secretary of State's office, I just released a plan for how I intend to improve that office, and one of the kind of parts of that plan is to go into areas where there's higher unemployment, or work with other groups that are encouraging business growth and businesses to start, and make sure we are there and that we are accessible and that we are explaining the process of how you register with the Secretary of State. It's really the first stop for any new business, and then not walking away after that, but helping with the next step and helping make it available. Like, what are the resources that are here that can help you, and that's a vulnerable time for a business. So I think there's a lot more that we could do to be helpful and encouraging, and I think that would be a way to use the office to try to empower.
Is there any way that there could be sort of collaboration between your state office, the Secretary of State, and the smaller political subdivisions, even cities the size of Cincinnati, Ohio, and municipal subdivisions.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's some sense, I just got a newfound title. I'm now Vice President of the Harvard Alumni for Agriculture Worldwide. And we're looking at LCD, the issue of farms owned by people of color and neighborhood urban gardening. And especially in some of the neighborhoods that might like to do it but haven't been guided to do it. I think the nature centers in Cincinnati used to have community gardens, but given the very extensive neighborhood structure in some place like Cincinnati, I mean, couldn't there be some collaboration to begin the business districts, maybe with urban gardening? If the neighborhoods don't?
I think there are a lot of opportunities for collaboration on the state and local level with groups that are encouraging businesses to start and grow, and that is part of the plan that I've introduced, is to improve those collaborations, make sure we're being inclusive with those collaborations, and that's definitely my intent with this part of the Secretary of State's duty, is to be as helpful and inclusive as possible, including increasing that conversation with the local and state level.
The only thing was the Cincinnati Urban Social Gardening Grant Program only allocated $20,000, $28,000.
Let me just say though that there's some things that fall within what the Secretary of State does, and some things that I think are, we need to address with our other elected leaders, our legislators. And that's part of wanting to fix the gerrymandering so that our legislature is more responsive to the needs of the communities. So it's a complex issue and answer, but I want you to know I'm fighting for our government to be more transparent and to work better.
Oh, the collaboration with agriculture. I mean, that's not elected.
She has to leave at 1.
I had a suggestion. You mentioned earlier that about registering to vote and the how, the when, the where, but right now being informed is getting harder and harder because of fake news and social media. Being informed is hard, but voting is simple. And I think a lot of people don't realize that voting is actually very simple. So they get intimidated by it. We've all had that butterflies in our stomach feeling when we're doing something we've never done before. And if you weren't encouraged to go vote in a civics class when you were 18 years old, then it might be a little intimidating to walk into that booth and not know what you're supposed to do. We all take the filling in the bubble and putting it in the slot for granted as an easy task. But for a lot of people, that's not something that they understand is a simple thing to do, and I would just suggest some education regarding that.
Amen. Again, I think that we need to improve our working with young people and our education around the voting process itself.
And older people who have never voted.
And there are a lot of places that I think that we can improve our voter outreach and voter education, and that would certainly be a priority for me as a Secretary of State.
Thank you so much for coming today. I'm trying to get you out.
Thank you so much.
I do want you to know that those of you guys who have not been here before, you were not here for the May 8th election. I am the lowliest member of the electorate. I am a precinct executive. I went around to every single house with the early voting, and I had every person on the ballot ready to go with, and do you understand? The ballot was there. They knew who to vote for. Every person in my district. We can make it happen. We need to make it happen. Thank you so much for coming, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having us here. Kathleen Clyde.
Kathleen Clyde.
My name is so. Thank you so much for coming. There is some food. If you want to take some of the food home, please make sure you take the food home. Thank you so much.